Hey there, this is Jürgen Beck for ADO, and welcome to this walkthrough of ADO's latest library, the 12 strings Guitar Solo. I prepared a short demo to show you some of the things that we can do with the latest library, which is fantastic. Let me just tell you that. I am very excited about it and excited to show you some of the goodies that we have in here. We do have different presets here, and they are in different ranges. One of them is fingered, the other one is picked, and then a morphed section here, which has some beautiful sounds. And I'm going to go through them, just playing this back, and show you what this sounds like with these different articulations. Let's go ahead and listen to this demo track. There are a few elements in here that I wanted to highlight and point out. First of all, we're going to hear the solo patches, and I'm going to take you through those a little bit later. And we also have a few elements in there from the Strummer, the 12 strings Guitar Strummer. If you're interested in that as well, we're covering that in another video. So let me take you around and show you what we have in this track, in this cue. From some other libraries, we have some strings that are happening up here in green. Then we have a synth bass, which is giving us sort of a foundation. It's always nice to hear that in sort of an atmospheric piece of music. We also have the fantastic Lori library in here, a little plug for that. The vocals that you hear, both a Celtic phrases and sustains Celtic. We're going to leave those alone for the time being. Just threw them in there because it made a nice atmosphere. What you see down here in these tracks, these objects here, are what you hear coming from the 12 strings Guitar Solo library. Well, minus this one here. We're going to talk about this one. This is the Strummer. But I'm going to show you what we have in these. And to do that, we're going to solo this. And I'm also going to open this. Now, this is a distinct 12-string solo patch, which is just kind of adding some individual notes to what we're playing back. And as you can see, we're using from the fingered section here in the 12 strings Guitar Solo, we use the infinite patch, which has a very nice quality to it. It is wide, it is open, and lends itself to individual notes that we're playing back in our composition. what we're doing out and down here with the modulation wheel is to add a little bit of vibrato to it. It's quite nice because it gives us an atmosphere. But what you also hear is in the background, and I'm going to stop talking so that you can actually hear it, are some additional harmonics that come in waves, adds a nice atmosphere. I'm going to play this back again so that you can actually hear it. So that's what we got there. One thing to note too is these patches very well respond to the velocity. In other words, how hard you are hitting the key. And there are different qualities that are coming out of that. So there are multiple velocity levels that have been recorded in here, which makes a very dynamic playing and more in a realistic fashion than we typically see from guitar libraries. So this is quite nice. Then the next patch that we have is down here. We're going to solo that as well. And let me play this back for you. So as you can hear it, these are not only reverse samples of the recorded guitar, but there's also processing happening. And not only that, but there's movement, harmonics are coming in, there's a swelling and an ebbing. In other words, a beautiful patch that will help you a lot in creating atmospheric music, and which is especially the case for anything in film music these days. Then down here in this track, let's solo this one as well. We have another solo patch down here in which we're sort of emulating like a strumming, but except we're doing this with the solo guitar so that we have a distinct control over what is happening. But there's some really cool stuff happening in there that I want to show you. I'm going to play this back first so that you can hear again what this sounds like, and I'm going to open this up. So we have a number of things going on. One of them, of course, is from a rhythmic perspective, we're creating some sort of a movement that we have here. But what we're doing with is, rather than using the Strummer library, which has a predefined chord that we're using, we can choose this freely here with a solo guitar. However, we still want to emulate what this feels like from a real guitar player strumming the guitar. And of course, this is one of the things that are extremely difficult to do with single note guitar libraries. This one does it a little differently, and I'm going to show you the specifics of how this works. So over here, we have the white double selected under picked, and when we're playing this back, as you can see, this sounds like we have a real guitar player playing with a pick down on the strings. Of course, we're starting from the bottom up, and then we're going further up. We never, as a guitar player, we never have two notes very close together, especially not on the same string. And this is something that keyboard players often have a hard time understanding, that you don't just press the keys down and specifically and especially not quantize them. So if you look at the value up here, you can see that they all differ a little bit. I'm going to step through them. Now these two are the same. I could bring this up a little bit. And what this basically means is that we have certain notes that come at a later time. So when I'm playing this back, it sounds like the pick is just going from the top, which is of course the lowest note on the guitar, all the way down to the lowest string of the guitar, all the way up to the highest string on the bottom part, and that is why we situate them this way that you see here. But there's also something that has to happen, and that is in most guitar patches that we hear, there is not sort of this strumming, clicking sound, some upper harmonics, perhaps, or in a very high frequency range. The clicking, the hitting of the pick, or even if we do this with the fingers, the fingernails hitting the guitar strings. And many times that can be emulated very well. So what we did here is we added something called Strum. What the Strum does is, I'm going to turn this up all the way so that you can actually hear it. And if I turn it off, I hope that you can hear the difference. So even with the staggered approach of moving the notes a little bit apart from each other to sort of emulate how the guitar player would strum that chord on the guitar, we also have an additional articulation, a patch that gets layered on top of that, that gives us this upper frequency sort of sound that sits on top of that. And depending on how loud we want this in the sound, we can turn this off and on and then set the volume there as well. So I'm going to demonstrate that one more time. And then, of course, we have a value here. This is the delay that we're adding into the individual nodes that we're picking in the individual sounds, and they're delayed all by a small factor. By default, this is 52, but we can bring this all the way down to 1 millisecond or all the way up to 200 milliseconds. It really depends on your playing style, how fast you want that, or what needs to happen within the realism that you're trying to create with this guitar. So one more time, I'm going to bring this all the way up, and the volume is here, and then you can hear that. All right, I'm going to bring this back down to 52 or somewhere around that. So that's that. The other thing that you would want to do is, and what I've done here, and you can see this at the bottom, this is my sustain pedal. A lot of times when we play the guitar, we sort of have either open chords or chords where we want to sustain certain strings. And of course, on the guitar, we can do this very easily. We just don't put a finger on a particular fret. And then either create a new note or just stop a string from sounding. What works here very well is to create the sort of atmosphere that you hear in this track, is to sustain the notes. Down here, that C would have been sustained with the sustain pedal, and of course it'll still sound and naturally decay that sample while the new notes are being strummed on top of that. But again, this is done with a solo patch and not with a strummer. We look at the strummer in a second video, but you can create really realistic guitar rhythmic elements with this approach and be completely open with your chords that you're picking. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show here is, of course, if we are picking different patches from our library here, let's see what this sounds like with a natural fingered sound. Again, with the same, the strumming is on, it's very high, and we have 61 milliseconds as a delay that we're going in and out between the strings. And as you can hear, this is much more close. In the middle, it's not as wide. Sometimes we make these choices by picking patches that fit better into what we're wanting to do. Of course, we had the wide, and that sounded just gorgeous. What you hear, there's a little vibrato in the back. We do have our effects here. We have a transgate going that is giving us a little bit more vibe to it. We can then also, in our other effects that we have here, add additional things. But as you can see, this is the sound directly coming from the guitar, from the recorded samples. There's no additional processing happening either within Contact here or outside in the digital audio workstation. It's just a beautiful sound. And of course, you are free to use any of these other effects that we have here, even throwing from the Chaos engine additional things in here. And of course, we can completely randomize the effect by clicking on our randomize button here. So any of these effects can be used in real time, of course, and that in itself gives a ton of different sounds that we can create. One thing to note here is at the bottom, we not only have our standard convolution reverb in here, which I can turn on and then customize, of course, but there's also another one called transform, which is a little different as it throws in some different convolution sounds in here. And taking something different. And explaining these controls down here, of course, you've heard them already in the audio, but I wanted to point them out a little better. Fret control is something that is layered into the sound, which when you think about a guitar, when the player moves the fingers over the fretboard, of course, there's the sliding that happens, and which makes a particular sound. We give you some controls over that. For one, the volume. So if I'm going to bring this up all the way, then you can probably hear that the best when I play this back. I'm going to bring this back into just about a normal position, about right here. Then the other one is the release samples. You can also turn these off. And what's significant to note there is the more we want to add realism to the way the guitars are being recorded and sampled, of course, in the natural world, we have the release sounds when the fingers come off the strings, for example. We added those in here as well. You can turn them off if you want to. Sometimes that is not appropriate in what you want to record. But for realism, we just added those. And of course, we already talked about the strumming articulations, the strumming sounds that are being layered on top of the actual nodes and sounds and pitches that you hear. One other option is dampen. You can add that on, and which, when you think about a guitar player putting the palm of the hand on the strings to sort of dampen the sound a little bit, it just takes a little of the edge off the top. And again, all for the purpose of adding a little bit more realism to what you do with your virtual guitar. And the last thing that I wanted to show you is the extended range here of the 12 strings guitar solo library. As you know, a guitar normally has as the lowest note, the lowest pitch that guitar can produce is an E on the E string. We go much further than that. So if you're looking at this keyboard range down here, everything that is highlighted in this light bluish color is the extended range. And this works especially well with the morphed patches. So I have selected here the analog 2 patch, and listen to this beautiful sound.